Welcome back. Now we're behind schedule. We're 10 minutes behind schedule, but I think we're going to make up the time as we go. We have now the panel that looks in the future of the e-commerce and payment ecosystems in the Arab world. I would like to call Mr. Omar Soudodi, CEO of PayFort, who will moderate the session, and also invite to the stage our speakers, Mr. Sami bin Lassoued from Ericsson, Mr. Jinab Durgu from PayPal Turkey, Mr. Tarik Ghanim from Du in the UAE, Mr. Sirish Kumar from Telr, Ms. Rania Makhamre from Bank of Jordan, and last but not least, Mr. Ronaldo Mouchawar from Souk.com. أهلا وسهلا بالجميع.
Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the Arab Advisors Group for inviting us, PayFort, to moderate this panel. And I know that's a very tough act to follow after her Royal Highness with the inspirational words that she left us all with in terms of helping others, innovating for a better future for the Arab world. And I think that's one of the reasons that brought all these gentlemen and brought everyone here to the audience, is that how we get the Arab world into, how do we solve the financial inclusion issue, how do we get more people to transact online. And as we all know that we are a cash-based society, so that's one of the things we'll be addressing today, is understanding how the e-commerce segment and how the e-commerce sector is driving the force in terms of adoption and triggering consumers to adopt online payment. I'm privileged today to have with me first, but before I introduce the panelists, I'll just do a quick introduction on PayFort. If you don't know PayFort, PayFort is a payment service provider that started 2.5 years ago. We started first in UAE and then expanded to Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and this year we're expanding in a few other markets as well. Last year we did around $800 million in transaction volume, and we have close to 70 team members today, so we're very happy to be part of this ecosystem. I'd like to introduce my fellow panelists. I have next to me Sami bin Lassoued from the regional sales manager for an ecommerce for Ericsson in the region. I have Janab Dorlu from Middle East and North Africa sales for PayPal Turkey. We have Tarik Ghanim from head of digital commerce at Du, and we have Sirish Kumar, CEO and co-founder of Telr, and we have Ronaldo Mouchawar, CEO and founder of Soudodi, and we will be joined with Ms. Rania Makhamre, head of e-channels and expansion of Bank of Jordan. However, she is on her way, so she will be joining us throughout the panel. Well, first of all, welcome everyone. And what I'd like to do first is, before we get into our subject and before we introduce your respective partners, the payment ecosystem in the Arab world is, if you look at the rest of the world, is a bit challenging, but on the other hand is also very exciting. 18% of Arabs are banked, so that means that 82% of Arabs are unbanked. So some people see that as a challenge, and other companies and other entrepreneurs see that as an opportunity. The Arab region, we have 45% year over year in online payment growth, versus US is growing by 15% and Europe is growing by 20%. So we enjoy the highest rate of online payment growth in the world. Of course, COD is king, cash is king, as they say, and it represents 80% of e-commerce transactions. And of course, e-commerce is one vertical for online payment. We have travel, we have smart government and e-government, we have bill presentment, we have bill payment. So e-commerce is one aspect of it, and of course, there are services, and we will define some of these definitions as we go along today. And in the last few years, we've seen in the Arab world the emergence of alternative payment methods. We've seen services like KNet in Kuwait, which is utilized by every banked individual in Kuwait on a monthly basis. We've seen services like Sadad in Saudi Arabia that has around 50% utilization on a monthly basis. We've seen Fawri in Egypt, which does 1.2 million transactions daily. So these are a lot of services that have came to our lives today, and we see more coming into the market, such as Madfa'atkum and e-Fawatirkum, PinPay in Lebanon, and Ganja in Morocco, which has 30% of the market. So there has been a lot of services that has been introduced in the last few years that has been able to have a lot of traction with customers. 140 million internet subscribers and growing by 35% year over year. Ronaldo Mouchawar will tell you that Souk has a bigger footfall than any mall in the Arab world. So that speaks louder than words. How do you get to that captive audience online? How do you make them convert? How do you make them use online payment? Of course, there's a lot of challenges, which hopefully throughout today you'll be getting a lot of insights from. Quick question in the audience. How many is working for a financial institution or a bank or anything? How many on the telco side? How many on the regulatory side? Okay, good. So a lot of bankers, some telco and regulators. How many are other service providers, merchants? Okay, so it tells me that the entire ecosystem is present here. So I think it would be great if we can actually all leave with a lot of wins in terms of what would be the next steps. So before we get into if we also look at Jordan, right now we have 9 million people in Jordan. 41% of them have a smartphone. 25% of them are banked, and $22 billion are being spent on consumption in Jordan annually. And only 5% of that is electronic payment, whether it's through a credit card or through direct debit or using a bank account. Okay. So what I'd like to do first is I'd like to welcome my my fellow panelists, and just if you give us an introduction about yourself, about your company, about where do you see this ecosystem and the definition, for example, for Ericsson, Do, PayPal, Telr, and Soudodi.com. If you just give us a quick intro.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sami. I'm responsible for mobile commerce within Ericsson for Middle East and North Africa, based in Dubai. I will say a few words about why Ericsson have been investing in this industry. We have been investing in this industry for the last 6 years. I think everybody knows who is Ericsson, but I think since we have some bankers, I will say a few words. We have the global ICT leader in the world. We manage every day 50 billion real-time transaction. When we talk about real-time transaction, I'm talking about voice, SMS, data. And it can be also applied for money, since it's a currency. The reason that Ericsson have been investing in this industry, I will say from a corporate perspective, it's mainly to bank the unbanked. It's, as Claire mentioned, is one of the top agenda for government, for NGO, I will say also for central banks. Around the world, there is 2.5 billion people who doesn't have access to bank account. Among them, 1.7 billion, they have a mobile phone. So I will say the question is quite easy. Why we don't leverage on this 1.7 billion and offer financial services? And this is from a company which is Ericsson, is part of our corporate social responsibility and is part of our Technology for Good program. So we are working with many players around the world in, I will say, banking the unbanked. The second reason that Ericsson is investing in this industry, and I think it's quite interesting, I can share it with you, we have been starting this industry as, I will say, B2C services. And we are a company which is working on B2B. And the reason where we started to work with these B2C services, with Ericsson Money Services, is to understand the full value proposition and the complexity of the ecosystem. As you said, there is, I will say, mobile provider, telecom provider, you have service provider, you have merchant, you have consumer, you have regulator, you have central bank, you have government, and you have merchant and agent. So the value chain, there are, I would say, many players in the value chain, and each one need to benefit from, I would say, the whole value chain. I will say, I think, I will just say a few words where we are working in, I will say, e-commerce. We have been working with many players, major players like MTN, like Millicom, like Orange, and we have, I will say, market share in around the world, which is Latin America, Middle East, Southeast Asia. This is just an introduction.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sabah al-Khair. My name is Tarik Ghanim. I'm the head of digital commerce for Do. For those who are not familiar with Do, we are the second mobile entrant in the UAE market. There's only 2 of us in the UAE market. We have almost half market share in the UAE, so we're quite the competitor for Etisalat. So as Sami pointed out, there's 2.5 billion customers out there who are unbanked, with 1.7 million that actually have mobile subscriptions. This is actually where the telcos have sought a new frontier for us to expand on our existing revenue streams, simply because we've been threatened on the regular voice and SMS streams. Having said that, most telcos these days have established digital businesses, and as such, I'm leading one of those verticals, which is the digital commerce arena. The UAE, for those who are not familiar with it, is quite the interesting country in terms of segmentation, because you do have quite the population that are unbanked versus a heavily banked population. So for us, we actually are toying on both those streams. For the bank segments, we're looking into the foray of digital wallets, the likes of the Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and what you've heard. It's quite the interesting proposition in terms of couponing and vouchers and streamlining the retail experience for the customers. And obviously, we are looking into mobile money in terms of the unbanked segment, and looking out to how to further capitalize on the financial inclusion aspect that we can provide there as telcos, since we are the 4th player in terms of the relationship ownership with those unbanked segment. Unfortunately, we are not as lucky as the Jordanian market, since the Central Bank of the UAE has yet to issue regulations with regards to mobile money. It has set us back 6 years, because this has been on our agenda for quite a long time. But hopefully, soon enough, with the advent of the Smart City Initiative and the Smart Government Initiative, which the UAE government has aptly put forward, but we're unfortunately still lacking the regulations. It's quite interesting times in terms of what we can do and provide in terms of technology. It's all there. It's just a matter of finding the right value proposition, and hopefully, in tandem with the right ecosystem players, we'll be able to provide it to the market. I'll elaborate as we move along.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cenab Doğru. I'm from PayPal Turkey and head of merchant services and for MENA, including MENA region. For the ones who is not familiar with PayPal, I want to give a small introduction what we are doing. PayPal is an online payment company around the world, which is having, more than 160 million accounts, and approximately doing the 20% of the world's online payments. And we are trying to enable commerce for reachable for everybody. That's the thing. That's the word of the company is saying. And we are looking some opportunities in the region. Since PayPal is an open platform, we are very open to any kind of opportunity for any kind of institution, merchants, and it's everybody who wants to develop a business inside domestically or cross-border, especially. When we look at our product value that we can bring to our users, the consumers, is mostly enabling commerce and safely, securely, and in a convenient way. Maybe we are going to discuss this topic in later on in the panel, but one of the most important barrier in the e-commerce is the security issue. Security means not only at the moment of the transaction. Security is in the total experience until you got your items. Maybe after you got your delivery and everything, you need to be covered by the company or by the payment company. That's one of our core business, making everything is secure and safely. And maybe we can talk about buyer and seller protection afterwards, how we do that. And that's it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I come from Telr. Telr, just to give you a little bit background, is actually an idea that came up amongst a group of experienced professionals. I left organizations like PayPal. There are a lot of few people who left from other organizations in this space and said we should actually do something in the emerging markets. As you really see, hearing to other panelists, as the market grows, we need to also look at how do we enable SMEs to really go from offline to online. So one of the discussions I was having with people yesterday in various chambers of commerce, including Amman chambers of commerce, was that there are more than 40 to 50,000 SMEs here. And most of them would like to come online, look at how they can actually reach out to more and more consumers. And this is where we see that organizations like Telr could actually help enable them to go from offline to online. It also means that we bring in people who could actually be partners in the ecosystem, whether it is banks, whether it is telcos, and really ensure that the journey for the SME then becomes much easier. So let me just give you an example. Today, Middle East, in addition to the facts that everyone has presented here, is at actually a very different inflection point today if you really look at the e-commerce and e-payment world. Today, what we have is a very high social media penetration in Middle East. The world average comes around 27%. But in Middle East, you'll see upwards of 40%. And now you couple that with mobile phone penetration, where you again see the penetration being the highest in the world in Middle East. UAE, Saudi Arabia talk about above 89 to 90%. So just couple these two together, social media and mobile phone, and then say you have an unbanked population, and then try to see how we're solving this problem. Can we actually enable the online SMEs first? Very small guys like you and I, we basically sell 10 and do 10 transactions a month. After that, he or she gets more confident, starts listing on the marketplace, and after that wants to create his own web store. And this whole journey of how do you really enable the merchant to grow is where we need to solve the pain point. And this is where you need to have tools where you are interacting with your buyers on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you're finally having it on the marketplace or on the website. That's where you're enabling the person to actually start making more impact on his own business. So I think this is where Telr was born, and we are now in UAE and expanding to other countries in the Middle East. We're committed to enter countries like Jordan in the next few months and build up the right ecosystem, focusing on small and medium enterprises. Big merchants and big enterprises are always welcome to come online, but the e-commerce will only grow, we believe, through the small and medium enterprises. And that's where we think we could partner with telcos and actually enable them to reach out to their offline SMEs with enabling them to say, why don't you also come online? So the incremental impact is tremendous, but the incremental cost is very, very low. And having one of our fellow panel members talking about security, I think if we bring in the highest level of security before we offer this solution to merchants, is going to be very pervasive and compelling argument to bring them on board. And that's where we bring in our level 1 certification process, where actually which allows us to be certified by MasterCard and Visa at the highest level of risk management for all merchants. The last thing I would like to mention is about the relevance of local solutions. It's very important for us to also ensure that the ecosystem within the countries enables a local seller to sell to local buyers. And that should tremendously reduce the costs. And we should not have small, medium enterprises really locking lots of cash and lots of costs before they have started their business. And hence, the local solutions, as we have talked about before, and we'll talk about it more, are really propelling the growth of consumers now coming online, making the bill payments. Since they've started making some bill payments online, they start now moving and making purchases online. And hence, the relevance of a consumer coming and buying locally, and then also making a good business case for a merchant to come online, then becomes a very good, compelling argument for a system to grow on e-commerce spaces. And it is very important because if you have lack of banks and lack of reach to the rural areas, it is very important that providers like us actually are enabling the whole expedite or enabling the acceleration of growth in the overall GDP of the country. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. Ronaldo Mouchawar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Soudodi.com. We started the company actually out of Jordan initially in 2006 with two Jordanian co-founders, Sami.
Ronnie, can you get it up?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
In 2006, and today Soudodi.com is the largest e-commerce site in the region. We operate in 4 markets, mainly UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, as well as Egypt, but we also ship to many other Arab countries. We're over 2,000 people in the group as a company, so we've managed to create a massive pool and opportunity for many young, talented Arabs. And really, Jordan is our DNA of engineering. So we have the only country we have a building is in Jordan, where we have most of our engineering here, and we're very proud to have this grassroots and a lot of innovation come out of Jordan. So I'm really happy to be here because it's really relevant to the young population that work at Soud and create what we have managed to do. Our strength really has been that we started as a marketplace. We allowed, as my fellow colleagues has mentioned, the ease of coming online and selling on the internet. So the whole process of setting up your store, Arabizing your content, providing payments, all versus cash, versus e-pay, versus prepaid, logistic, delivery, fulfillment, return, everything is managed on behalf of our merchants. We have over 70,000 merchants on the platform. We have over 1 million products that are available to sell. And we get over 35 million out of the 130 million Arabs visit us every month in the Arab world. So effectively, we are the largest shopping destination in the Arab world, in a country where you have the best malls in the world are probably in Dubai. We are bigger than the biggest mall. So we're very proud of what the team has achieved. And the revenue on the company has been growing over 100 to 150% over the last 4 years. So we're seeing an amazing journey of transformation of Arab and youth and merchants coming online and believing on the internet. And we are actually working with many handset and brands that are only selling their products today in the Arab world, entering the Arab world only through online, discarding retail and all the previous distribution channels that exist, because the cost from manufacturing out of China to a consumer in Cairo is very effective and very efficient, and this is allowing a massive potential growth. I'm very excited, because we are a local platform, and today I was on a call before this conference where MasterCard released their first report, where this year has been the first year where local e-commerce has surpassed buying from Amazon and eBay on goods. There are still other things like travel and services that people buy from abroad, but on potential shipments and products, Saudi Arabia, just local, which is mainly has overtaken the international. UAE, we're 64% of total e-commerce now, and Egypt, because of customs, it's already close, so it's 70% of commerce. It's very exciting time for us, because I think this allows massive jobs and opportunities. We all need to work together in terms of figuring out how the telcos, I think, has done a great job actually in terms of enabling connectivity. So we are now at par, and in mobile we're actually ahead. and our mobile site gets 60% of our traffic. So 60% of our customers shop through their mobile site. We're no longer a website. We should be probably called a mobile company, but we will be, and we've seen in other markets where mobile has extensively grown, where people just discard their website and focus on our mobile app. So in the connectivity part, I think the telcos have really done a great job in terms of enabling Arabs to come online, and the costs seem to be coming down, especially in countries such as Egypt, and I think in Jordan also connectivity is widely accessible to many, with low-cost handset devices that are today octa-core, $100 phones that have more power in computing than Apollo that went to the moon. We're allowing basically merchants to be able to, with very low entry and cost barriers, to come online and be able to really connect to the 130 million Arabs, hopefully, that are online, and hopefully next year that will be 160 million. So it's an unmatched opportunity in terms of what a merchant can today do, and our buyers are now very sophisticated. They understand the value proposition of selection, price, and convenience. We did have to unlock still some issues with payments. We have worked heavily on logistics in Cairo, in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, where we're trying to deliver most of our goods next day. But I think the ecosystem has finally turned, and the momentum of growth. So online is 60%, Souk is growing around 100%, and retail is growing at 5%. So you can just do the math and see where we go. In the handset mobile category, Souk is already at global level, where we almost sell 7 to 8% of handsets sold in a given market online. In certain categories of mobile phone, we're 30% of that category. So meaning that we are able to bring new devices at a very disruptive cost and changing the way people connect to the internet. So that's kind of our story, and we're really excited to be here. I think we really need a bank with us, because payment still is the theme of this panel, and we need the banks to ensure customers of security and trust, but also make it convenience, not put too many steps and barriers, to allow people to transact freely and easily over the internet.
So thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to start with you, Ronnie, regarding, you give us an idea of where Souk and e-commerce is today in the region. If we fast forward 5 years from now, if you tell, if there are any aspiring entrepreneurs or retailers that wants to go online, wants to capture some of that market, where do you see this market going in 5 years, and what would be the inflection points that would have to happen in order to get to the 10% that is happening in the UK and Europe today?
So today, if you look at total retail, including food, is about 300 billion in the region, at least in the markets we operate in. Online is about 3, total transaction is about 15 billion. So online is 1%, very small. Fast forward 5 years, we're growing at 60 to 70. I think there'll actually be in Egypt and Saudi Arabia in the next 2 years a massive tipping point where the growth rate will be